The moment Barcelona held its breath and the tyre wall did its job. Heikki Kovalainen remembers nothing of this, but 2 weeks later he's on the front row in Istanbul. It's a racer's instinct, which Rubens Barrichello has demonstrated 257 times. We celebrate Formula One's new record breaker and admire the man who's led the Turkish Grand Prix for the last 2 years and is still in front.
Massa goes through. He is going to snatch the pole here for the 3rd year in a row.
Felipe Massa, who's won from pole position at the last 2 Turkish Grand Prix, and the Ferrari man is back on pole for this afternoon's race. So welcome to the Istanbul Speed Park and the Turkish Grand Prix at its earlier and definitely cooler place on the Grand Prix calendar. Kovalainen's crash, Barrichello's record and Massa's pole among the topics we're covering in our race build-up. And we'll also see Martin Brundle in the cockpit of a fabulous Lotus 49 in the second of our series, celebrating 60 years of the British Grand Prix at Silverstone. But Mark Blundell, it's definitely still feeling like Silverstone weather here today, maybe Silverstone in March.
It does, yes. It's a little bit cold, and I think there's a few problems for some of the teams. Some of them can't get their tyres working efficiently, and I think that's going to show during the race. Well,
tyre selection, tyre choice, another big topic for us in our race build-up. But let's remind you that it's round 5 of this Formula One World Championship. This is how things stand. Kimi Raikkonen having stretched his lead in the Drivers' Championship as a result of that second straight Ferrari 1-2 in Barcelona. Raikkonen's win giving him a 9-point lead over Lewis Hamilton, who was back on the podium in Spain. But Hamilton just a point clear of Robert Kubica and 2 ahead of today's pole position man Felipe Massa. And Ferrari starting to extend their lead in the Constructors' Championship. 12 clear of BMW Sauber, McLaren Mercedes a further point behind. But since Barcelona, the Formula One field has been reduced by 1 British-based team and 1 British driver in Anthony Davidson. Here's Ted Kravitz on the demise of Super Aguri.
Yes, thank you very much, Stephen. Very sad not to see Anthony Davidson and Takuma Sato here. And here we are. It's the Super Aguri-sized gap in the paddock. Really, what did for Super Aguri was not only their failure to attract any more money, but also the incoming ban on customer cars. That is when you buy a car and an engine from another team and run that. Next year, constructors will have to be just that. They'll have to build their own car, and ultimately there really wasn't the money for Super Aguri to do that. The team bosses are discussing whether to change that rule or not, but if they don't, the next team to be in trouble is this lot, Toro Rosso. They're already up for sale, and the fear is in this paddock, Steve, is that they will be the next ones to go under this customer car rules, and that really would be sad for F1.
Yes, the loss of Super Aguri providing a great deal for Formula One to reflect on in terms of future structure and future funding. But in the short term, it also meant that with 2 fewer cars in the field, there was a bigger chance of a big-name team going out at the very first stage of qualifying. James Allen tells the story of how the grid was formed.
There's a chilly wind blowing across Istanbul this weekend, making everyone have problems warming up their tyres. Now, normally, the soft tyre is the way to go in qualifying, but that wasn't the case for everyone yesterday. With the demise of Super Aguri, only 15 cars go through to the second part of qualifying. Nakajima and Piquet both fell at the first hurdle. David Coulthard was on form, getting into the top 10 for the 2nd time this season. Meanwhile, the Hondas were struggling to get the soft tyres to work for them. Barrichello and Button line up 12th and 13 on the grid. Into the pole position shootout, Massa was fastest after the first runs, with Lewis Hamilton down in 5th. Lewis has opted to run the harder tyres, even though teammate Kovalainen was finding the softs 0.3 of a second faster. Still, it was a great lap from Lewis for 3rd place on the grid, just a 10th behind his teammate. It was the 2nd time this season that Kovalainen has outqualified Hamilton. He bounced back impressively from that huge crash in Spain. World champion Kimi Raikkonen didn't get hooked up throughout qualifying. He's down in 4th place on the grid. In contrast, Mark Webber did a great job for a season-best 6th place ahead of Alonso's Renault. But no one could live with Felipe Massa. The little Brazilian has a style which suits this track perfectly. He delivered when it counted to claim a hat-trick of pole positions here. But the front 3 look like they're on similar strategies, and with unpredictable conditions, this race will be far from straightforward.
It's a fantastic track, fantastic place, and I feel very comfortable and happy to come here every year, and I did a fantastic lap as well.
So let's take a look at the grid for the 4th Turkish Grand Prix. And for the 3rd year in a row, it's Massa on pole position. Kovalainen gets his first ever front row start. Through to row 2, Lewis Hamilton disappointed not to be on the pole, with Raikkonen alongside. Row 3, Kubica, first time this year off the front 2 rows, and Mark Webber. Alonso and Trulli make up row 4. Row 5, Nick Heidfeld, disappointing in qualifying, and David Coulthard. Then it's Rosberg and Barrichello on row 6. Row 7, Jenson Button and Sebastian Vettel in the Toro Rosso. Row 8, Timo Glocker was very quick in the first part of qualifying, and Kazuki Nakajima. PK couldn't get it together, he's 17th, Sebastian Bourdais alongside. The two Force India's Sutil ahead of Fisichella, and the gap at the back where Super Aguri used to be.
Well, Lewis Hamilton reflected that he might have got his tyre choice wrong. He agonised over it yesterday. What exactly are the tyre choice problems for these teams, and who might be struggling the most?
I think all of the teams have had their fair share of problems. Lewis, I think, decided on taking the harder tyre. He felt that he could get a balance in his car, but I think the outright speed wasn't there. Kovalainen proved that the speed was there in the car because he chose the soft tyre, a little bit more grip. The big problem for some of the guys is they actually can't get the balance right. They can't get the heat built up between the front and the rear quick enough to get the car in balance and get that grip and that confidence, and that's some of the issues that they're dealing with.
And that's a problem that Ferrari have, and BMW has struggled, so too Honda.
Yeah, Jenson Button also a candidate of taking the hard tyre, and in fact couldn't get a balance on his soft one. It's going to be a tough one during the race as well, because these guys have to use all of those tyres, the option and the prime tyre, and if they do get an imbalance in their car and don't have that grip level, it could make a big difference in lap time.
But Massa was brilliant yesterday, and you have to admire Heikki Kovalainen as well. Just 2 weeks after that horrific crash in Barcelona, he comes back with his best ever qualifying performance in Formula One. He's on the front row when in actual fact it's an absolute miracle that he's here at all. Louise Goodman now reports.
Heikki Kovalainen had the biggest accident of his entire racing career in Barcelona. The Finn was travelling at around 160 miles an hour when the front left wheel rim of his McLaren failed. Just 11 days after being airlifted to hospital, Heikki was given the thumbs up by the FIA to drive here in Turkey.
Monday morning when I woke up and I had a headache, I thought, oh, hope it doesn't last too long. But you know, it went away very fast, and I was able to start exercising on Wednesday and Thursday already. So since then, you know, no concerns, and all the medical tests that we've done, all the scans and all the checks, you know, have confirmed that I have no injuries. So I was very lucky.
Formula One is inherently a very dangerous sport, and therefore, you know, we should never become complacent. There can always be a serious accident, and there can, you know, potentially be a fatality in Formula One. That's a fact of this sport, and it's, you know, a very strong element in all of our minds that have been involved in the sport. But you know, that's why I think there's such a willingness for everyone to work together to improve safety.
If you see his accident, how the chassis was destroyed, and if you see my accident that I hit the wall, there was no tires. I have legs outside of cockpit, and I have nothing broke. You can break your leg walking down from stairs. So in some way you have to have luck as in every single day as well.
It's just a great reminder that thankfully there's been a lot of improvements made to the crash testing over the last few years, which we have to thank the FIA for, and obviously the teams for responding, and that, you know, we're on the edge.
This is part of our life, and we've been doing it for so many years. I've been having accidents since I was 8 years old, you know, that's 20 odd years. So I'm used to it. They're just getting bigger and faster now. But I think it's something that we know there's a danger.
What part does the fact that you guys are all so fit in the first place make in terms of your recovery times compared to Joe Public like me?
When you're fit, obviously, if you had a big impact, all your internals are supported by all the muscles that you've obviously worked on. So, but also the safety has been massively improved, and they've done a great job with that. So, and as you can see, Heikki was able to get back in today and just hit it out. You know, he did a really good job today.
How satisfied were you with the performance of the tyre barrier in Barcelona? It is a worry to see a driver get buried like that.
It is a worry, yeah. We've seen tyre barriers kind of, you know, the evolution of them. They used to be one layer of tyres and then two, and now we're up to like 4 or 5 layers. And I think now there's a problem with when the car goes into the tyres, it actually starts to absorb the car and actually takes the tyres coming over the top of the cockpit and hitting the driver. We've seen it in GP2, we've seen it in Formula 1 with Kovalainen. And it is a problem. It's something they need to look at.
A surprise problem here. It emerged during the course of this morning's GP2 race. 2 stray dogs on the track. One of them thankfully got away, but the other was hit by Bruno Senna.
Yeah, an incredible situation. Should never happen. Should never have animals on a motor racing circuit, and they need to do something quick. I hear that there's a few people out there trying to get actually dogs tranquilised to make sure that they're not around the vicinity, but it's so dangerous. It could have been very bad indeed.
Had to get Bruno Senna tranquilised after that experience. Thankfully, there were no dogs on the track for qualifying in Formula One yesterday. Let's admire once again the mastery of this circuit that Felipe Massa seems to have. His pole position lap and the circuit itself, described by Martin Brundle.
The Istanbul Grand Prix circuit, 5.3 kilometres, 3.3 miles. It's anti-clockwise, 8 left-handers and 6 right-hand corners. Let's take a look at the track.
And will the magic spell that Felipe Massa has over this place be broken today? Well, one other thing that we're celebrating at this Turkish Grand Prix is the 257th Grand Prix start for Honda's Rubens Barrichello. It means that he overtakes the record previously held by Riccardo Patrese and becomes the most experienced driver in Formula One. A big, big day for Rubens Barrichello. Well, here's the top 10 that he will head after today. The top 10 list of the most experienced drivers. David Coulthard, the only British driver in that top 10. 3 world champions in Schumacher, Piquet and Prost. Giancarlo Fisichella joins the exclusive 200 club in Monaco in 2 weeks' time. But as Louise reports, the celebration of Barrichello's achievement has started already.
A nice round of golf seems like a good way to relax the day after a hectic race weekend. But when Rubens Barrichello was joined by friends and colleagues at the most prestigious golf club in Barcelona the day after the Spanish Grand Prix, it wasn't just for a pot around 18 holes. The day was a celebration of a 16-year career that's seen Rubens win 9 races, score 519 points and take 5 pole positions as he becomes the longest-serving driver in the history of Formula One.
You know, most people celebrate big events in their life with a huge party. You're celebrating with a round of golf, so you're definitely getting old, aren't you?
35, I'm not old. It feels old because, you know, I felt very old when Lewis came to me and said, look, I mean, when you started in '93 Formula One, I was just starting karting. I said, oh my gosh, that's bad. That's scary. That's scary. Most important thing for me is to keep the eye on it. Yeah.
You were particularly emotional in those days, weren't you?
Yeah.
I mean, you still are, but I guess you've learned to control your emotions more now.
It's very true. I mean, it's those days was difficult not to be. I mean, I had my hero there. You know, it was Kyalami. I was seated on the car. I was checking the TV, the monitors. I had put a lap in, and all of a sudden I saw Ayrton getting out of his garage, and you know, I had to pitch myself because. Is he really on the TV? And then I look from the outside of TV, he really went by, and it was fantastic. For me, it's special this moment because I've went through some period with really good drivers.
You are a different person now, aren't you?
Yeah, very much. And I think, like you said, I had to work with my emotion, and I'm proud to say that I've cried everything I could in Hockenheim because it was an emotional time, and I'm very proud of that. But I had to work with it because...
Hockenheim when you won your first Grand Prix?
Exactly, yeah. But, you know, sometimes it did bother me, you know, when we lost Senna and then the pressure from Brazil, and it was tough, and I had to work out. I had to be like you know, I had to be cold sometimes, and I wonder that sometimes my mom or my dad, if they questioned that, because I had to change a bit, but it was for the good of my profession. It took me 7 years to win my first race, so it was, you know, it taught me a lot that day, that you had to, I couldn't just put my nose up and be snob. I had to keep my feet on the ground and work a lot, and you know, those days with the Jordan and then with the Stewart, those days really teach me a lot.
What have your family meant to you as well over those years as well? Because they're incredibly important. Your parents, obviously, but now your own family, your kids and your wife.
You know, I love them. And honestly, when people question, oh, Rubens should just go home now. He had enough. I just love so much the speed. I love so much Formula One, because if not, I would stay home with them. And I'm sure that the time will come for me to say, oh, I had enough. but still I love the speed, I love the challenge, I love to win, and that's why I'm still here. My boys now tell me, okay, Dad, you're starting 11th. Okay, so you're from the outside. Yeah, get on the inside on the first corner. So he's 6, but he's telling me that, so it's funny.
It's a measure of Rubens' enduring popularity that virtually every team and, of course, his close-knit family were represented at a party here in Turkey on the eve of Rubens' special day. 257 and counting.
Rubens Barrichello, Mark, emotional, humorous, and one of the really good guys in this sport.
He's a great guy, great driver. He's been very successful, and I still think there's a lot left in Rubens. But you can almost see that there's a tear in his eye now. That's the kind of emotions that run through Rubens. He's always been doing that, and that's why we love him.
To celebrate his record today will be with a Grand Prix point. He hasn't managed that in, what, 21 races?
I think if he can get a point, he'll be very happy with today. And if we can just see Honda progressing and Rubens inside the cockpit, that would be a great sensation.
Well, there he is. What a record. 257 records from Rubens Barrichello on his way to becoming the most experienced driver in Formula One. It is interesting to look a little bit further down that top 10 list. Other British drivers. Nigel Mansell has driven in 187 Grand Prix. Amazingly, Graham Hill, 176 Grand Prix starts in perhaps the most dangerous and challenging era in the sport. And as Rubens gets set to go on his way, Martin Brundle can take us back to that era, the mid-60s, in the second of our series, celebrating 60 years of the British Grand Prix at Silverstone. It's about fabulous Lotus 49, Colin Chapman and Jim Clark.
The difference in a Lotus and a Cooper was if you were good enough, the Lotus was faster.
It was exciting. Of course, you had Jim Clark, of course, but there's Graham Hill and Dan Gurney and Jack Brabham, and they're all, you know, good racers and people who had a go. It was great times.
We're celebrating 60 years of Formula One Grand Prix racing here at historic Silverstone. We've collected together 6 running cars representing each of those decades. Last time out, you'd have seen me grappling with the Maserati 250F. Today, it's the iconic Lotus 49, driven by the great Jim Clark. A classic and pure era of Formula One. Legendary world-class drivers head-to-head in these fragile machines. Racing in traditional colours, just before sponsors' logos would dominate forevermore.
The British Grand Prix draws enormous crowds. Clark and Hill are in pole position again on the grid, with Brabham and a further 18 cars lined up behind.
Jim Clark is now approaching his final lap, and all are willing him for the checkered flag.
This is the moment shared by thousands and relished by the Ford and Lotus camp.
There's something special about going to Silverstone and knowing that you're heroes, and then you see up on the wall somewhere, you see the pictures of the Mosses and the Brookses and the Fangios and those names and James Hunts up on the walls. I think it's just, you know, it's fabulous to come here and just sort of engulf yourself in that atmosphere.
Okay, we're leaving the pit lane in this 1967 Lotus 49, a car that won its first ever Grand Prix with the amazing Jim Clark at the wheel. It feels so small. It feels like I'm on a motorbike actually, as if there's nothing in front of me really. Just an awful lot of performance behind me, 400 horsepower. The iconic Cosworth V8 Formula One engine. I can see why this car suddenly moved the whole game forward. It's so much lighter and more nimble than the Maserati of the late 50s, for example. Nice little gearbox, you have to use it sequentially. Brakes a little bit dead. Engine is very drivable, very tractable. That lovely DFV sound. The whole car just slides across the road, but it is in balance. It is in unison. Just open her up a bit now. I can see why Clark so enjoyed just turning up and thrashing everybody in this car. It was the beginning of an era. Jim Clark, Colin Chapman, Keith Duckworth, Cosworth, and they just dominated for many, many years with this kind of rear-engine layout. I'm sitting in a bathtub of fuel. My knees are jammed up against the bulkhead. No doubt about it, you do feel exposed in these cars, but they become, after a while, rewarding. Now I'm wearing seatbelts today when this car first won the Zandvoort Formula 1 Grand Prix on its debut in 1967. For sure then, they did not have seatbelts. What a lovely sound from that Cosworth engine. Well, it's certainly been a pleasure. I felt slightly tentative in this car, in that it seems very keen to try to spin off, but there's a purity about it, a nimbleness. The engine is a peach.
This is the first time we've been able to coordinate the build of an engine and a chassis together and design each one to suit the other. And with the sort of weight and simplicity and power that keeps coming up, I think we're going to have a fabulous motor car.
Days later, I finally understood what unnerved me about driving this car. The engine was simply 10 years ahead of the chassis. Apparently, even Jim Clark was much happier when they later added wings and better tyres. But as design genius Colin Chapman rightly said, it's a fabulous motor car.
And we'll continue that feature right through to the 60th anniversary Silverstone British Grand Prix in July. Martin drives the Emerson Fittipaldi McLaren next in our Monaco build-up, but still tickets available for the British Grand Prix via the Silverstone website. And while we're talking websites, the ITV F1 version has all the background you require, including video footage of every session at every Grand Prix, plus the fantasy Formula 1 game. But it's the ITV F1 competition that's really worth winning.
We're giving you the chance to attend one of the classic races on the Formula 1 calendar, the Belgian Grand Prix, on the 5th, 6th and 7th of September. You and a friend will be treated to a luxury package with leisure select Eurostar tickets, accommodation in a 4-star hotel in Liège and transfers to the circuit. Plus you'll get 2 tickets to the Eau Rouge VIP area where you'll find an open bar and buffet, and there's access to the GP2 paddock, tickets to the F1 pit walk and seats overlooking the infamous Eau Rouge corner. To be in with the chance of winning this prize, courtesy of the Belgian Tourist Office, Brussels and Wallonia, just answer this question correctly. Which dish is Belgium famous for? Is it A, mussels and chips, B, egg and chips, or C, sausage and chips? To enter, call 0901 293 2020. Calls cost £1 from a BT landline. Calls from other networks may be higher, and from mobiles will be considerably more. Or text the word F1 on your answer, A, B or C, to 63337. Text cost £1 plus 1 standard network rate message. Digital, satellite and cable viewers can enter by pressing their red button now. You can also enter for free at itv.com. Entrants must be 18 or over, and lines close at 5 p.m. this Tuesday, the 13th of May. Entries made after closing time won't be counted, but you may still be charged.
Good luck with that, but there's an awful lot that's going to happen in this Formula 1 season between now and Spa. Starting with here at Istanbul Park, where we've got a Turkish Grand Prix lap of honour from Rubens Barrichello. 257 not out, even before the race begins. We'll get the thoughts of Lewis Hamilton after the break, plus all the opinion from down there on the grid. We're back in a couple of minutes. It's good to report maybe slightly warmer conditions here at the Istanbul Speed Park, and with the sun trying to force its way through and Felipe Massa on pole, it's more like business as usual at the Turkish Grand Prix. But how good it is to see Heikki Kovalainen on the front row just 2 weeks after that horror crash in Barcelona. I'm not sure how impressed Lewis Hamilton is, though, to be out-qualified by his teammate for the 3rd time this season. But Lewis talked yesterday of his own emotions in the aftermath of the Kovalainen crash.
You know, I get on so well with Heikki, and you always worry for your your teammate, because you work together very closely, you spend a lot of time together and you build up the relationship. and I saw he was quite close, and then then he's in the wall, and so first of all we're not getting points, but secondly he may not be able to race the next race, he might be injured, and it was good to see him recovering, and I was keeping a close eye on him while we were away, and I don't know if you heard, but he beat me at bowling. I was thinking hopefully this time, because he's got a bit of a concussion, he might not be so good at bowling, but he destroyed me, so I was a bit disappointed.
The support you gave him was a bit too good. He's ahead of you on the grid, and
I mean, Heikki's a good driver, there's no doubt about it, and he's a fantastic driver, and he's very quick, especially in qualifying, and people, I'm sure everyone's underestimated him except me, and there's going to be times where he's going to out-qualify me. It's I can't be ahead all the time. Obviously that's the plan, but it never always goes to plan. We're on the second row. I'm on the clean side, so fingers crossed. Hopefully I won't get jumped by anyone behind, and I'll be able to at least challenge the two guys in front. And the plan has got to be to make 1 or 2 places at the start.
It's a tough first corner, though, isn't it?
It is. Only because you actually can't see it as you're pulling away from the grid. You can't see it, and as soon as you start braking, then it appears and it arrives, and you have to start turning, and so it is a very tricky corner. But when you do the start of the grid, you're focusing on the guys in front. And my anticipation is that Felipe is going to go to the left to defend Heikki, and then that gives me the opportunity to go down the outside. But I just have to see how and wait and play it as it goes.
Well, Nico, from where you're starting, you're on the outside for turn 1, but the inside for turn 2. How do you play this first corner?
The outside for turn 1 and the inside, yeah, definitely. Yeah, because turn 2 isn't really a corner, so that caught me out of it. It's mostly turn 1 and 3 that count. But I think the outside is the better place to start because it's a clean line. So last year we saw that the people starting on the outside had better starts. So maybe I can grab a few positions there. That would be great, and then look forward to a good race.
Okay. I hope it works out for you. Thanks.
And we heard Lewis Hamilton there, Mark, signalling his intention that he's going to be aggressive off-road too, which is no real surprise. But is that his best chance of nailing Massa?
Probably at the start, yeah. We've seen Hamilton do some great starts, but we've also seen that Ferrari from Barcelona especially were very competitive off the start line, and that's going to be a bigger issue for Hamilton to deal with. But one of the other problems I think that may come about is there is an outside chance of rain. Temperatures definitely dropping, clouds are coming in and they're getting darker and darker, and there is some forecast that there's possible rain during the race.
Yes, those umbrellas are up for the supposed heat that's meant to be around this circuit at the moment. Kimi Raikkonen there, back on row 2 behind Lewis Hamilton, and once again disappointing in qualifying.
Well, I think he had a small error that he made during the qualifying, and it definitely caught him out slightly, and he's put him on that second row. But also with Kimi, don't count him out any which way, because he's normally running a little bit of fuel there, and he goes a distance in the first stint, and I'm sure he's going to be in contention for the win in this Grand Prix.
But it's Massa on pole. Massa brilliant around this circuit, and I think Louise is with his race engineer.
Well, Rob, your man is on pole, but how difficult is it going to be for him to actually win this race today?
It's always very difficult, it's never easy. We've got great competition. We've got great competition inside the team. We've got great competition outside the team. So we've just got to do our best and hopefully get to the end with 10 points.
Any particular tactics, anything particular that you're worried about?
No, not really. I think it's just the normal checklist that you do before every single race. We've just got to do everything perfect. To win a race in Formula 1, everything has to be 100%, and that's what we want to do today.
If he wins, do you get to go up on the podium?
Don't know.
Hope so. See you later.
See you later.
Would you expect the strategy to be pretty much the same among all the teams on the front couple of rows?
Yeah, I think pretty much. What will be interesting is just to see the tyres, what are chosen by the guys at the front, whether they go on the softer tyre to do the first stint or whether some of them take the harder tyre. And, as we've seen before, they have to run all the tyre choices throughout the Grand Prix. With the tyre temperatures as they are, I think the softer will be the better option.
2 Red Bulls in the top 10. Great qualifying performance from Mark Webber, who's on the 3rd row. Let's hear from him.
Absolutely, yeah, great qualifying from Mark. And Mark, what's going to be key to scoring some points today?
Well, our race pace in the last few races has been very good, so we can continue that. Obviously, the first stint's going to be crucial against, Fernando and Jarno and these guys. Usual suspects around us, but we're starting in a good position, so maximum concentration for 90 minutes is required, and see what we get at the end of it.
And turn 8, the challenge of that?
Oh, the neck gets tired, but
That's what we're paid to do.
Just hang on and go yeehaw.
Cheers, yeah.
Cheers.
I wonder how many others will be seeing the back of Mark Webber today. They're set for a good result.
They are. They've been very strong this weekend. And Mark Webber just making a point about the neck muscles with turn 8. Not forgetting that this is an anti-clockwise circuit, and it is a strain on the drivers' necks because they're used to going around clockwise, obviously, with most of the circuits. So it's tough on them physically, this racetrack.
But it's got opportunities to challenge and overtake.
Yeah, definitely. There are opportunities. Turn 1 is a great one. You get on that fast pitch straight there and you can dive underneath. There's a couple of other places on the circuit coming up to the last chicane as well, where we've seen a few moves made, and this a circuit where opportunity is there, and I think a couple of the guys will definitely in the first opening laps try to make it count.
So the bagels are being served, the dignitaries are starting to clear the grid, and this, as you heard, is a racer's circuit, and the anticipation is that we're going to see much more of a race than we did perhaps in Spain 2 weeks ago. Can the two McLarens disrupt this threatened dominance by Ferrari? Where will BMW be today? Well, we'll be closer to finding out all those answers when we return with the start of this Turkish Grand Prix right after the break.